Let's talk about the key characteristics of a fixed cost. A fixed cost is a cost where the total costs stay constant over a relevant range, and we'll look at an example in a minute. Total fixed costs per unit of activity vary inversely with changes in volume. And again, when we do our example, that will make more sense to you. Our cost equation for fixed cost is simply y equals f. It doesn't matter what your volume is, your fixed costs are going to remain constant over your relevant range. What is the relevant range? Think of relevant range as the normal operating range of activity for now. And we're going to talk about relevant range in a little bit. Let's take a look at an example of fixed cost. Let's assume that we have a classroom and the rent for our classroom is $5,000 for the month. Let's take a look at the cost behavior for fixed costs. So we're going to see how the fixed costs change with changes in volume. So we got a rent of $5,000 and we're going to assume that this classroom can hold up to 100 students. So if you have one student in your classroom, the cost is still $5,000. You will still have to pay $5,000 rent. What if you have 10 students? 10 students, you will still have to pay $5,000. Whether you have one student or 10 students, it doesn't matter. Your rent is still going to be $5,000. What if you have 50 students? Again, $5,000. However, what if you have 300 students? Is it still going to be $5,000? Well, no, it's not, because I told you that this classroom can hold from anywhere from 0 to 100 students. The minute that you reach the 101st student, this classroom's not going to be big enough. We're going to have to find a bigger classroom, so the rent is going to change. We don't know how much, so based on this given information, we cannot predict how much the fixed cost would be for 300 students. We say that the relevant range for a fixed cost is from 0 to 100. Now let's take a look at your fixed cost per unit, which means basically what is your cost per student. If you have one student, your cost per student is your total cost, which is 5,000, divided by your volume, which is one student, it's 5,000. If you have 10 students, your cost per unit comes down to 500. For 50 students, it comes down to 100. So if you notice a trend, fixed cost per unit has an inverse relationship with volume. As volume increases, fixed cost per unit decreases. So a total fixed cost stays constant with changes in volume. However, your fixed cost per unit varies inversely with changes in volume. Next, let's plot our fixed cost data on a graph. Again, your y-axis represents your cost and your x-axis represents your volume, which is number of students in this case. So let's see what your fixed cost graph would look like. It would be a straight horizontal line where your fixed cost, the intercept is at your fixed cost. So the graph would intercept at fixed cost, which is 5,000, and it would just be a straight line, straight horizontal line. The cost for 0 students would be 5,000. So would the cost be 100? For 100 students, it would also be 5,000. Now, we stop it at 100 because our relevant range is from 0 to 100 students. After 100, we do not know what our cost graph would look like. We don't have enough information, so we stop right there. So now you can see your cost equation for your fixed cost. Y, which is equal to total cost, is equal to F, which is your fixed cost.